With the centrality of technology, we have a hybrid society. And with this hybridism, we are bringing together values from, let's say, the last century, the modern century, like communication peer-to-peer or one-to-many. And nowadays, we need to have a communication that argues for reciprocity. So the communication process needs to be many-to-many, and we are not prepared. The whole traditional modeling for education is not prepared to communicate many-to-many. We were prepared to communicate one-to-many, as we are doing here, okay? So we are living times with both systems together, and sometimes it drives us a little bit, well, what is the logic now? But we need to understand that we need to be flexible in order to live this transition. We need to understand that we need to address the newness with new methods and new research methods and new assessments. Because another big problem that I think we face in changing, bringing the real world to education is that we can make different projects, but at the end you are going to be assessed by the past. So, no newness is going to survive on this.
When we're talking about technology, we can think back to how we've always thought that technology would reinvent teaching. If you go back to the invention of the radio and the TV and the VCR and how we expected all of these things to dramatically change the way education was delivered, and that was never really the case. Now, I do think the internet and the prevalence of all the devices that students use make this a different case. But it does, as you've said, go back to the teacher training. You know, when teachers are not digital natives in many cases, how can they be trained to help students mediate these new technologies and new ways of learning? I also saw, I think someone tweeted that we need to be considering the ways that children learn naturally. And going back again to what Dr. Sahlberg said about the many factors that influence education beyond just the teacher. So the things that the teacher uses, the curriculum, the standards, I think in the US we've seen that a lot of those things have gotten in the way of the natural ability of children to learn. We're going through a huge curricular shift to the Common Core standards, and I think that part of that is a result of the concern that we are doing too much. We're over-teaching students and not letting them learn on their own.
The right question for me is not, can we have education without teachers? But rather, how can we get high-quality teachers for a better education using technology as a means and not as an end? Teacher effectiveness is a key predictor of student learning. In fact, it has been found to be the most important school-based predictor of student learning, a finding that indicates the potential for teaching policies to improve student learning. The big problem is that many countries, like Uruguay, my country, are facing a serious shortage of qualified teachers. Moreover, teachers suffer from poor status of profession, salaries, and working conditions. That's the reason why policies that address the need for teacher training, support, and retention should be at the core of national educational reforms and planning.
Can you imagine what education might look like if everyone could be considered a teacher? And again, with the rapid growth of all the smart objects, everything could also be a teacher. What would this model look like, and how could we live in such a world? Ted, please comment.
Well, as the only engineer on the stage, I have to talk something about technology. And I think according to Alan Kay, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And what about right now? more and more users, teachers, parents, amateurs, they produce and create huge amount of contents all the way to the cloud and open it to everybody through different kind of devices. So the students have the right and and they can download and search and select the contents they need from the virtual world. It's just like you have a private, virtual teachers from the virtual world. And so you can see that so many teachers on the cloud, but there are also so many students on the cloud as well. And so to make this happen, actually you need 3 things. If you want to provision education as a service to the cloud, to anytime, anywhere, to anyone, then you need a cloud. It's a data center, it's a big, huge data center, or it's a distributed data center. And everybody should carry a client devices of whatever you want. And then you need connectivity, so you can deliver the contents from the cloud all the way to the client and to anyone. And that's, the ICT industry is working right now in different kind of domains. But at the client side, we also need huge amount of different kind of users that can contribute the contents to the cloud, because this is only a platform. This is only the tool. Basically, it helps you to archive, distribute, share the informations, but it cannot create the information or the digital contents on its own. It relies on human being. It relies on the teachers. It relies on the students to do that kind of things. And so, what about the future? And there are so many things that we are unable to virtualize using computer or communication technology. We are all human beings born with different kind of gifts to create, with different kind of senses to feel, and such things like smell, like gesture, like eye contact, and so many things can only be happen in a real classroom and cannot be virtualized. So for me, it's a matter of how we can balance the teachings from the real world and the teachings from the virtual world.
Facts nowadays are on the cloud, so everyone can have access to facts. But how to make connections among those facts and then be able to tell a story, and this narrative, telling the story and making connections, is what we can call high-order thinking skills. And this is the ability that teachers are in my opinion, they would be formed to play. This is the most important role. Teach me how to think. Teach me how to make connections among this huge amount of data that I have.
The problem is in the paradigm of teaching. Do we still need to do what we've been doing for the last 2 centuries? Or because of technology and because of the new research on the brain and how people learn, we should change the paradigm to something different and be able to reach more students more effectively and make learning the real thing? I think that's the basic problem.
Definitely co-creation, collaboration, everybody being a teacher and a learner, I think is very important, and definitely not forgetting the student, because, I mean, after all, education is there for the student. If we're not giving the tools for a better life, if we're not doing a good job at that, do we really call it education?